shell on the back of Brian's back.
Inadvertently, and very much against the BBC ethos, they were fueling demand for Magic Roundabout merchandise. The series was now getting 8 million viewers a night, and manufacturers were falling over themselves to license the characters to sell everything, from books to blancmange.
It was the beginning of the power of television. I guess that it came from the kids themselves. They asked their parents asked the manufacturer contacted us. That's the way.
By the late 60s, merchandising to children was booming. Everyone was cashing in on the demand for spin-offs, and the biggest seller of all was the Magic Roundabout.
We weren't very much encouraged to think in terms of merchandising. It was a new art form in a sense, and it was created as Play School and Jackanory and all these animations gripped. Then BBC Enterprises, or whatever it was called in those days, started to realize that there was merchandising potential, and Magic Roundabout was always the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that they were all chasing. For a long time there was nothing like the Magic Roundabout for scooping up that enormous appetite parents have for giving children spin-offs, and for children to be seduced by advertisements into buying spin-offs.
I remember buying, and I was rather too old to buy these things, so I was in that slightly ambivalent stage of thinking, you know, dare I go into a toy shop to buy a dinky car which actually has Dougal and Dylan in it, and Brian, I think, in the boot at the back. But there were these things everywhere, and they appealed to everybody, so yes, in the end I did go in and buy it.
The vivid reds and pinks and blues of the toys and gifts reflected the true hues of the Magic Roundabout, which the French had been filming in colour since the second series. It took until 1970, however, for the BBC to finally catch up. New characters were introduced to supplement the French cast, but soon became part of Thompson's parade of familiar eccentrics.
Switch it off, said Ermintrude. What? Before it's finished its cycle?
But Ermintrude, you know, hello darlings, oh dear heart, this wonderful camp cow. I mean, how else can you describe her?
I'm a film star, film star. Second verse, said Dylan. Slow movement.
Dylan the Rabbit was named after Bob Dylan, which gave rise to the most enduring myth about the series, that everyone was on drugs.
Yes, that is the modern myth, because we met all the university students who said, oh yes, early drug culture. Absolutely not. Isn't it interesting how we put our own spin on things?
That's a relief, panted Dougal, getting on with his cake.
I don't know whether anybody's ever said this to you about the Magic Roundabout, and I may be alone in saying it, but I think it was strangely subversive.
Oh, really? Thought Dougal. If it's not one thing, it's another.
I will not be put in an antique shop. I was at Waterloo, I'll have you know.
You'll be at St. Pancras if you don't watch it, mate.
Now, what I think it was doing was setting up this really quite bizarre world filled with really rather strange characters and telling you that it was all right for all of those characters to coexist.
Zebedee arrived. Late as usual, said Florence. You'll make me cry, said Zebedee. No, I won't, said Florence.
And I think that was a very liberal kind of idea, maybe at a time when people's ideas were becoming politically rather more liberal. But I latched onto that as a young man, particularly as a young man searching for my own sexual identity. And I know other people did too, that it gave you a sense of all of these characters with all of their frailties and quirks openly displayed, not hidden, not concealed. They were all there, and nobody apologizing for being what they were. And I found that deeply reassuring in a world in which I felt actually as a young man, very, very unsecure.
What's that sheep doing there? Oh, it's me.
I think Thompson was subversive. I think you think you've got somebody straight, don't you? Not necessarily in marriage, just in life. You think you've got them pigeonholed and sorted, and then they suddenly do something so way out that takes you by surprise, which is nice, isn't it? Somebody I knew called him a controversial character.
One of the things I think that Magic Roundabout really did achieve as a children's programme, you know, a lot to do with Eric Thompson's voiceover, was that it put in little signals and little innuendos and things that you could go with or you didn't.
Perhaps you prefer my Tosca, said Brian. No, we wouldn't, said Dougal.
The funny thing is, you can be much more round the corner with jokes with children. You can say something that's very tongue-in-cheek or very camp to a child and it will get the joke. A listening adult may not. I don't know why. I think adults are more anxious.
In 3 short years, the Magic Roundabout had gone from being an idea to an international phenomenon. Money poured in from merchandising and foreign sales, while Dano copyrighted the series in his name. Many of the original team became disenchanted, and for Ivor Wood, certainly the magic had gone. When Dano moved his animation studios from Paris to the French countryside, Ivor decided he'd had enough.
I decided no. Because I thought this was getting myself into too much of a one-way street. I'd be stuck out there. What happened is suddenly he decided to give the whole thing up or sell it out or whatever. You've established yourself out in the countryside. Very nice, thank you. But I didn't think that this was the time to do that, as far as I was concerned.
Mr. Rusty was, as usual, a bit worried. No one ever seems to ride on the roundabout anymore, he said. Well, I will, said Florence.
I think the Magic Roundabout was not only of its time, but actually led to other things. It was significant because it inspired a series of programmes that were in their own way just as magical and just as beautifully created, sometimes better made. I think of the Herbs, for example, and Pass Through the Lion, as being created with, in some senses,